Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing a Zombie World deck profile. So this is probably one of my favorite kind of decks in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is actually zombies, because this deck has so much different utility, and there's all sorts of different zombie monsters in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! That can be added to the Horde. Which is really cool about this deck, because you can add literally any zombie card in the entire deck, whether it be good or bad, into the zombie deck as long as you're playing the Doom King engine with Zombie World, and it's still pretty good, which is what's really amazing about this deck, and I really love it. There's so many different variants of this deck and so many different ways to actually build this deck. At one point, I even did an entire week of deck profiles just doing zombie decks because I love them so much. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell near so you can become part of notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below because we have all sorts of awesome rewards for you guys, like getting your name searched for every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, or even getting a requested deck profile every single month to your patron along with test hands. So without further ado, guys, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing the single best zombie card in the entire deck, in the entire game actually, and that is 2 copies of Doom King Baller Drawd. So what this card does is during your standby phase, or during the standby phase, so it's either yours or your opponent's, you can special summon this card from the graveyard if you control a copy of a field spell. Literally any field spell, this card just brings itself back, which is a really crazy effect. It also has the ability that you can only use each effect of the following effects of Doom King Baller Drawd once per turn, and once per chain, when a zombie monster except Doom King Baller Drawd activates its effects, except during the damage step, you can quick effect apply one of these effects. Either negate the effect or banish one monster from the field or graveyard, which is pretty cool because it doesn't target. It just immediately banishes it without even targeting it. This card is absolutely insane and a really good boss monster that was created in one of the structure decks back in the day. This card is just insanely good. This card makes the entire deck worthwhile. So then we play 2 copies of Necro World Banshee. This card is really good because it lets you banish it from the graveyard to be able to directly activate a copy of Zombie Roll from your hand or deck, which makes everything a zombie, including the monsters that your opponent controls in their graveyard that you control and in your graveyard, which is really good. We then play 2 copies of Glow Up Bloom. If this card is sent to the graveyard, then you get to add a level 5 or higher zombie monster from your deck to your hand, which is usually going to be Baller Drawd anyways, but sometimes it can be Jack-o'-Bolin, depends on what you need. But it also has the ability that if you control Zombie World, however, you get to special summon that zombie to your side of the field instead of adding it to your hand, which is super good. Then we play 3 copies of the, probably besides Baller Drawd, the single best zombie in the entire deck, and then it's 3 copies of Unizombie. Unizombie is the play starter of the entire deck and is probably my favorite zombie in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! It's just so jolly. Even though it's a zombie, they're singing and it's fun. What this card does is it lets you send a zombie once per turn from your deck and one from your hand from your to the graveyard. So you increase its level by 1 for each one that you send. So if you send one from your hand to the graveyard, it increases it to 4, or another monster on the field by 1. If you send a zombie from the deck to the graveyard, it increases its level by 1 as well, or another monster on the field, which is pretty good too. We then play 3 copies of Shiranui Solitaire for consistency because you contribute this card to be able to special summon Unizombie from the deck. We then play 2 copies of Mizuki. Mizuki is really helpful because this is what you usually send off of Unizombie to be able to get its effect off, because you can banish from the graveyard to target a zombie in the graveyard and special summon that target. So it's basically a monster reborn in the graveyard that can be banished to resolve its effect. We then play a single copy of Gozuki. Gozuki, when it's normal summon, or while it's on your field during the main phase, you can send a zombie monster from your deck to the graveyard, and as you can see the theme of the deck, you're sending zombies to the graveyard quite frequently and getting them back. We then play 2 copies of Jack-o'-Bolin. Jack-o'-Bolin is really, really insane in this deck because it can be worked out really well with your copy of Doom King Baller Drawd, because you can discard a zombie monster, or discard any zombie monster, special summon this card from your hand, and then during your opponent's main phase, quick effect, you can target a zombie in your graveyard, in either graveyard, special summon that monster, but banish it when it leaves the field. Then banish this card face up into the end phase. Now the cool thing is actually with Doom King, you can actually make a little bit of a soft loop where you can actually activate, or have Doom King on your field, activate Jack-o'-Bolin's effect, bring back something from the graveyard, trigger the copy of a Doom King, and then once it does, you get to banish something on the field, which is pretty cool. And then you also have a negate effect as well if you have Zombie World on the field when your opponent activates something. So at any point, this card can be a essential banish on the field that doesn't target, which is pretty good. We then play a single copy of Vampire Fraulein. Yes, she is really good in this deck too, because when a monster declares an attack, you can spell summon this card from your hand, and then you can pay life points up to 3,000 in increments of 100, all the way up to 3,000 when a zombie monster you control battles, and you lose life points equal to the amount that you paid, and once you do, that monster gains the attack that you lost, which is pretty cool to be able to gain the attack points, because it's like she's taking the life force from you and putting it into the zombie to increase its attack to go after the opponent for the game. We then play a single copy of Plague Spreader Zombie, because Plague Spreader Zombie can be brought out with your copy of Crystal Needle Fiber and be able to get you into all sorts of crazy plays, like going into Red Eyes Zombie Necro Dragon and into Beals and into the most powerful synchro monsters in the entire game. We then play 3 copies of Ash Blossom, because Ash Blossom is a really good card in this deck too, because you can discard this card. It is a zombie as well, to be able to discard this card to your graveyard to be able to stop your opponent from basically touching their entire deck and stop them from all sorts of shenanigans. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Called by the Grave, because this deck is quite calling. This deck is pretty cool. I love this. This is so fun. This deck is so fun. But what this card does is basically you get to stop a hand trap. I really wish this card would have gone to 3 on the last ban list, but hey, whatever. It's still at 1. We still have plenty of negates in this deck. It's fine. Cross out Designators right around the corner, and that'll be my new Call by the Grave temporarily until this card goes back to 3, which it will at some point go back to 3. It's already at 2 in the OCG. I don't understand why we didn't get 2 on this list, but whatever. I think they're just trying to sell product, but that's a topic for another day. So then we play a single copy of Foolish Burial. Foolish Burial is really good because it's zombies. They all go to the graveyard. They all have effect. You can resolve this, search your field spell. You can send this to the graveyard if you have the field spell already on the field with Glow Bloom. Summon out Doom King Ballardrot to your side of the field to give you a negate and give you a banish on your side of the field. You can send Mizuki to get you a Monster Reborn. This card is just endlessly good, and it's kind of like a wild card in the entire deck that says use any of your zombie monsters' effects, because they're going to go to the graveyard. One of my surprise techs in this deck is actually a Dragon Smear. You guys are probably looking at this card and going, wait, why? But the reason you actually play this card is because of Dragon Necro Nether Soul Dragon. This card is really good. It is a it is a dragon monster in the deck that lets you fusion summon it using 2 zombie monsters, which is really, really good. It has the ability to be able to attack into an opponent's monster, reduce that monster's attack to 0, and also, if that face-up monster on the field is still on the field, you get to special summon a Dark Soul token that is the same attack as the monster that you just battled, which is pretty cool, and we will get into the rest of that effect in a little bit. But we then play a single copy of Monster Reborn. Monster Reborn is really good because you're going to be sending your zombies to the graveyard so much, and we play pretty much 3 copies of it because we also play 2 copies of Book of Life. Now this is kind of my own personal tech in the deck, because Book of Life is really good because you get to send a monster to the graveyard, and then you get to banish a card from your opponent's graveyard as well, which can help you out quite a lot because there's certain cards that your opponent wants to keep in the graveyard, and this card is just really good at just saying, no, I'm getting rid of that, it's banished, it's gone, and I get a zombie back on my side of the field. So you have plenty of cards of revival in this deck. We then play for the single best card in the entire deck outside of Ballardrot and Unizombie, probably in the top 3 best cards in the entire deck, is 3 copies of Zombie World. Now this card is what makes the deck go round, because all monsters on the field become zombies and all monsters in the graveyard become zombies, and also neither player can tribute summon except for zombies, which is really good. We then play 3 copies of Super Polymerization, which this card is always live. I will tell you, this is always live because you have the copies of the Nether Soul Dragon, you have the copy of Starving Venom. You have so many different options in this deck with this card. This card can literally out 2 cards in the deck, and discarding the card from your opponent's graveyard, or discarding a card from your hand, is just going to help you out as well. So this card basically comes in for free and gets rid of 2 monsters on your opponent's side of the field when you have Zombie World, which is insanely good. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we are going to be playing 3 traps, or 2 different traps and 6 traps totals, which is 3 impermanents and 3 Rivalry Warlords. So you might be looking at Rivalry Warlords and going, wait, why? Well, let me show you why. So there's a really cool interaction actually with Zombie World that essentially says your opponent can't play Yu-Gi-Oh, which is really funny. I'm not surprised it hasn't been banned or anything like that, because zombies are not super meta. Like, they do come up from time to time as a rogue interaction. But what this card does is basically, if you read these 2 cards, they come in really handy together. This card makes everything a zombie. This card says each player must send monsters from his or her side of the field to the graveyard, so he or she only controls 1 type. This makes everything a zombie. This makes it so that you can only control zombies. guess what? You're not playing a mirror match. You can't play. You can play one monster at a time. Your opponent literally gets to play one monster at a time if you have both of these cards on the field. It's really dumb, really funny though, but it wins games. And that's why I play it as a 3 of in the deck, because you really want to draw into Rivalry of Warlords really quickly to be able to stop your opponent from doing all sorts of stuff. Now, the copy of Impermanence is basically just here because it gives you an additional negation on your side of the field to be able to discard from your hand to the graveyard and get you all sorts of different negations. So that's it for the traps, guys, and the main deck. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing a single copy of Red Eye's Zombie Necro Dragon. This card is really good because what it does is basically it's a big beat stick. And it also brings zombies back from the graveyard when you destroy a monster by battle. With this card, it revives a zombie from either player's graveyard. So zombie world's on the field, I get to take my opponent's monsters, which is pretty funny. Also, it gains 100 attack for each zombie monster on the field and in the graveyard. One copy of Psyframe Lord Omega. It is a zombie deck. You need Psyframe. It's just good. We play a single copy of Beals because Beals lets you, like, go for games a lot. This card's really good because it can't be destroyed by battle, and when you take damage, you gain the damage that you took. One copy of Shiranui Shogun Saiga. Shogun Saiga is really good because it is a zombie. It kind of works around Rivalry of Warlords and kind of works with the theme of Rivalry of Warlords as well, which is pretty good. It also has the ability of this card to special summon. You get to banish any zombie monster in your graveyard, and it gains attack equal to the banished monster's original attack. So if you do banish something that's really big from your graveyard, it can gain all the way, I believe, up to 58 without Zombie World on the field. If you do have Zombie World on the field, technically, you can banish one of the other monsters that are bigger, and so I think the max attack is 6,000 this can get to. Also, it has the ability that replaces itself as well, that this card is destroyed by battle or by card effect, and you can target one of your banished zombie monsters with 0 defense and return it to the graveyard as well, which is pretty good to be able to just put something back in the graveyard to revive later. We then play a single copy of the Virtual World QB, Shinshin. This card's really good because it basically is Macrocosmos on the field. The only effect that matters is any card sent from the field to the graveyard is banished instead. Now, it's good because it does just get rid of your opponent's entire graveyard and really hurts the opponent a lot more than us. To be able to just stop them from doing stuff. Now, you want to establish this late in the game, but it's a really good kind of surprise card against your opponent that hurts them more than us sometimes. You can take it out if you don't want to play it and play another one of the Shiranui Synchro monsters, the level 6 or the level 7, or even F.A. Don Dragster if you want to play that, or Void Ogre, but I really like this card as a one-of, and I've been playtesting it a little bit, and it's working out pretty well for me. We then play a single copy of Shiranui Sun Saiga. Sun Saiga is pretty good because if this card is special summon, you return any number of your zombie-type Synchro monsters that are banished or in the graveyard to the extra deck, and then you can destroy cards your opponent controls equal to the number of cards returned. And if a zombie type monsters you control would be destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can banish a Shiranui monster from your graveyard instead. And this card helps you out a lot with the Virtual World monster because it just gets cards back. We then play 2 fusions, which is the Dragon Necro Nether Soul Dragon, which we pretty much went over its effect before. But basically what this card does, in a nutshell, if you guys didn't catch it, is if it attacks a monster, it doesn't destroy it by battle. It just makes a token on your side of the field that's equal to the level of the monster that it attacked, and it has the same attack as the monster, but 0 defense, and then that token can attack again, which is pretty cool. We then play a single copy of Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. These are basically your 2 super poly targets in your extra deck. But a single copy of Access Code Talker gives you additional pops. You can put in Boral Sword if you want, Appaloosa. Depends on what you want to play. I just like Access Code Talker, but it's up to you. If you're trying to build a budget zombie deck, drop this, put in Access Code, put in Boral Sword, put in whatever you want that's a link for. Don't put Zero Boros in. Put Boral Sword or Boral Load or Appaloosa in. We then play a single copy of Unicorn. Unicorn spins stuff, so it's pretty helpful in the deck. One copy of Phoenix because it pops spells and traps. Vampire Sucker because sometimes you need the suck. One copy of Crystron Needle Fiber. Needle Fiber is really good in the deck too because it can bring out your copy of Plague Spreader Zombie. One copy of Predaplant Verte Anaconda. Anaconda is really good in this deck because it gives you access to Super Polymerization at any time in the game to eliminate 2 monsters on the field. And then a single copy of Linkuriboh because Linkuriboh works really well with your copy of the Glow Up Bloom because Glow Up Bloom is a level 1 monster, and when it's linked away, it goes to the graveyard, which triggers its effect to special summon Baller Draught or Jack of Bolin. Usually Baller Draught. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a really fun deck to play around with. I highly recommend that if you guys have never played zombies, you should definitely play Zombies. It's pretty much one of my favorite, top 5 probably favorite decks of all time with the way it plays, and my probably favorite typing in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh, to be honest with you guys. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.